You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products, saving lives by selling collars, scrunchies, and swag. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That's BARKNWAG.com to see the awesome merchandise. Bark and Wag collars and leashes, collar covers, and decorative bandanas are perfect for your pooch. For the owner of the house, we have t-shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts, hats, and even coasters. We are expanding monthly, so be sure to check back. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise too, so send an email to polly@barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Steve, professional trainer at the Dog House in Breckenridge, Colorado. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, thank you for having me, Polly.
Well, today we had a question on what is leadership dog training. And since you're an expert, we came to the source.
Excellent. Well, thank you for considering me for this.
Yes.
So leadership training is basically using dogs' behavior, how they act towards each other, social cues, things like that. You're basically assuming the role of the leader of the pack, which, works out very well, especially for strong-willed dogs, dogs with maybe fear, aggression, insecurity issues, and things like that.
Okay, and how did you learn about this type of training, leadership training?
So a lot of time, I've come from a background of a lot of different types of training, but just sitting in the daycare and boarding while the dogs are playing in daycare and just watching how they interact with each other and watching how pack mentality evolves, and just kind of, thought maybe I should try assuming the role of the leader and seeing how they react towards it. And it's produced really good results.
And so is this, do you find that this is more for large dogs, or I guess there's bossy small dogs?
Correct. And you can kind of tailor it to really what you need, the type of behavior you're trying to modify in a dog. Like if you have a pit bull that's very dominant, obviously you're going to be a little stronger with them than, say your golden retriever or a scared chihuahua. I think things like alpha have become bad words, and they're really not. That's how dogs communicate and interact with each other. So what type of success have you seen with this type of training?
So you're comparing when people are looking for leadership training in their community, it's different than if you're at PetSmart and just going through basic training?
Correct. Anybody can dole out treats and get a desired behavior. Really, where leadership shines is when you don't have that bag of treats in your pocket. The dog is following you because you're interesting to be around, you're more fun, they don't have to fear anything, they can look at you as the true leader of the pack. There has been a lot of negative brought about in regards to a certain style of training because people think it's like rolling up a newspaper, and spanking a dog, and that's not it at all.
Yeah.
You never, ever hit a dog or even act aggressively towards a dog because all you're doing is making a dog more aggressive, and they're just going to pay that forward to the next weak dog they come to. This is more just using their social cues and interacting with them just as if you were a dog. To give you an example, if a dog's doing an undesirable behavior, I'll growl at them. I might come up and poke them in the neck with 2 fingers and growl at the same time. If you ever watch dogs, when they interact with each other, they bite each other on the neck a lot of times. So that's kind of the things we do.
And have you thought about training the owners?
That's the majority of what I'm doing, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because, a lot of times the owner has the dog on the bed, the owner's carrying it around if it's a little dog in a purse, and then they're wondering why their dog is scared. Well, your dog's insecure because you're not treating it as a dog. If you act as a dog with your dog, it's going to act like a dog and not be confused on what species it is.
Oh, what a riot. It's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's more a psychological side of things. Because like I said, I can carry around a bag full of treats and get dogs to do what I want, but why not have them do it because they want to, because it's socially acceptable to them? If you're being bad, I growl at you. Why do we treat dogs different than we would children? Other than the language barrier, it's very similar. This whole timeout thing with children, how much success are we having with that right now?
Yeah, not a lot.
No. So you have to let a dog know when they're doing something that's inappropriate. You can't just go sit in the corner. You have to show them why and lead by example.
And so I know you're in Breckenridge, Colorado, but if listeners are interested in this type of training, what are some of the characteristics they can ask a trainer about this type of leadership training platform?
So a leadership trainer is going to be more a dog behavioralist, somebody that is looking at the psychological side of things. Positive reinforcement training, that is, handing out treats, and that works great. But if you have an aggressive dog, that's not going to work. Or you have a dog, that's very independent, like a husky. They're not necessarily going to go for the positive reinforcement training. But if you look at a group of huskies, they're always going to follow one of them. They were born to run, and they're pack animals. So what better way to get a husky's attention than act like a husky?
Interesting. Well, thank you very much for all of the information, and I will put your information on the show notes so that if people have any questions, they can contact you. And we certainly thank you for being on the podcast.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Polly.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.